The city of Venice, easily one of the most beautifully unique in Europe, has been on our couple wish list for years and should probably be on yours too. We did slightly lower our expectations for fear of scenes like this, which we will get to, but for any downsides Venice has, it's hard to dwell when its upside frequently looks like this. So for this video we'll share which ticketed attractions might work best for you, what expectations you might want to set if you're splashing out on a gondola, why its most popular day trip was a surprising highlight, some fantastic Italian food of course, and to what extent do its busy streets ruin the fairy tale vibe. If you're new here, then welcome. We make travel movies from around the world, hoping you might just find your next holiday inspiration. This is Suitcase Monkey with a 3-day weekend in Venice. We arrived late last night. With the streets being peacefully quiet, it left us kind of in the dark about our choice of accommodation and neighbourhood. So it was somewhat of a pleasant surprise that with a bright September sun racing through the windows, this first wake-up was lovely. Our hotel was a handful of rooms set within the first floor of a traditional 1600s Venetian building, characterised by its high ceilings and stone balcony. And it was this latter part that was easily our highlight, perfect for each morning that was still to come. As usual, all restaurants, tours, our hotel and more are linked in one free downloadable PDF guide for those wanting to replicate any part of this trip. We were staying in Cannaregio, the northernmost district and historic Jewish quarter within central Venice. Throughout our time here, this area did feel pretty homely, not just because we slept here, but also felt relatively more lived in by its locals, especially along this one stretch with bars and restaurants creating an enjoyable nightly stroll. Even at 9 AM though, on our first morning, the city still felt like it was waking up, so doing so even earlier is the best time to make the city feel like your own. The simple absence of cars maintains a timeless feel where even the mundane feels refreshing. Boats trying to navigate the tight waterways, deliveries inspired by Fred Flintstone, and even just waiting cargo. They all hit different here and make up a sizable part of the city's charm. As we made our way to the iconic St. Mark's Square, the crowds obviously began to grow. This space and the buildings connected to it were once at the heart of politics, religion and influence for the now dissolved Republic of Venice. But even today, its crowd-pulling abilities are still mitigated by its size. As one of the only wide open spaces here, it makes for a refreshing change, and there's plenty to experience. Numerous museums plotting its history, the Campanile Bell Tower, the famous Bridge of Sighs just around the corner. A €16 coffee with a €7 live music supplement fee, which if it's played to you by Vivaldi is a really great deal. The striking Basilica of St. Mark's and of course the Doge's Palace. For these last two we actually booked a guided tour to get the full story. Once home to the city's highest elected power, the Doge's Palace is a grand building that takes an hour or two to explore. Made up with a unique mix of elaborate government offices, courtrooms, residential halls, and this grand chamber for council, once the largest room in Europe, the tour mostly covers the Republic's heyday until Napoleon's brief occupation in 1797. You also get to walk across the iconic Bridge of Sighs, which from the exterior is a popular photo stop, but when traversed from the inside, it's actually just a tiny cramped corridor connecting the palace to its jail. Its name is said to have come from the prisoners sighing as they looked out at their last sight of freedom before sentencing. Kind of like how I feel before I board Ryanair. Attached to the palace and ending our tour was St. Marks Basilica, a 1,000-year-old cathedral that isn't just a place of worship, but a mini museum too, housing a collection of historic gems. But for me, the highlight was its 4,000 square meters of walls covered with gold mosaic tiles. Stretching across a massive canvas, it is stunning in its own right, but it wasn't until I realised that this was all just made up of individual tiles that made it even more impressive. Lastly, we finished out on the terrace, offering sweeping views of the square below. It should be said that these two attractions should 100% be booked in advance, as the wait times can get crazy, so I'll link more info in that PDF guide. As typical, I will also follow up this video with a more practical guide about visiting Venice, covering transport, costs and ticketing options, so once it's ready, I'll link that at the end. Our last stop around St. Mark's Square was the Correr Museum, which was included with our ticket to the Doge's palace. Focusing on the art and civilization of Venice, it spans 1,000 years of history with a range of galleries, artifacts and decoration ideas for your kitchen. It definitely isn't an essential visit, but if you have the ticket already from visiting the palace, it's at least worth an hour of your time. Whilst 2 days in Venice gives enough time to see most of its highlights, having that extra 24 hours allows more of its best free activity. Since there are more side quests here than The Witcher 3, aimlessly wandering its streets is always a gift, so whilst we had a general destination in mind, we let the next few hours be guided by whatever caught our eyes. But no matter where you end up, at some point you will come across the Grand Canal. Running almost 4 kilometers, it breaks its busiest islands in two and is a sight in itself. So much so, Venice is one of those rare cities where taking a trip on its public transport can be an attraction on its own. Its most famous landmark, though, is the unmistakable Rialto Bridge. Dating back more than 400 years, this marks the Grand Canal's oldest crossing, but is best experienced in the morning. And that's because at 9:30 it looked like this, and 5 hours later it looked like this. To be fair though, the Rialto Bridge and its connecting streets were the only time that crowds ever actually impacted our time in Venice. So it should be noted that for the rest of this trip, sure the streets were busy at times, but never enough to have a meaningful negative impact. So ultimately this turned out to be a concern we needn't have worried about, at least not when visiting in late September. We ended our first day at this cozy little restaurant, largely offering seafood and pasta, about 10 minutes from the Rialto Bridge. After wondering if I'd been given enough pepper, our first evening meal was a solid choice to end day one, but the best was still yet to come. Tomorrow we'd be taking things a little slower, still on the hunt for our favourite Italian dish, exploring the city's most stunning opera house, and testing whether an iconic gondola ride is actually worth your money. But before we begin our second day in Venice, I want to rewind to our arrival. Nowadays, when booking a holiday anywhere, the large upfront payment of the flight itself can put pressures on your spending. So for the times you're unable to commit to such a large cost so far in advance, I wanted to put Pay Later Travel, the sponsor for this portion of the video, as a great way to get you where you want to go whilst managing your holiday budget. Pay Later Travel lets you find your preferred flight as you would normally, but then both lock in the price and save a seat for you with whatever deposit suits you best. This gives you the peace of mind against airline price hikes and availability, whilst breaking down the cost to a more manageable payment schedule over the weeks or months before takeoff. The total price shown to you at the time of booking is the final price, so there is no added interest from what you originally commit to. Once the final payment is made, your ticket will be sent to you as normal, and you can enjoy your holiday having paid everything off already. There are no credit checks, no impact on your credit score, no early repayment fees, and an excellent Trustpilot score from thousands of customer reviews. To learn more, visit paylatertravel.com using code Suitcase to get a $25 discount off your flight booking and lock in your next holiday. Venice and gondolas are as synonymous with each other as Disneyland and Splash Mountain. Both are enjoyed on water, both are a pleasurable journey at heart despite their commercialized nature, and both feel like something you probably should be doing just because, well, everyone else seems to be doing it. But despite what the 1980s Cornetto advert had me believe, only one of them guarantees someone singing to you. To be honest, we went into this with fairly low expectations, more so doing it for the channel. For walk-ups, the jetties are spread throughout the city and are hard to miss. The prices though are all standardized, so a private gondola for up to 5 people is a fixed €90 before 7 PM and €110 after. So especially with a family, it works out less than I assumed for such a popular tourist attraction, and much cheaper than say a shared ticket on the London Eye, which also lasts half an hour and, dare I say it, is less special than a private gondola ride in Venice. So although it definitely isn't cheap, it may still be worth a punt price-wise for a special occasion. But I must say, most of our negative assumptions were only contained within the first few minutes. The gondolas hadn't had time to spread out, and you can feel like just another customer. Pushing these valid issues aside, over the next 25 minutes, as we settled in and found more of our own space, we kinda got caught up in the moment. Watching the craft of the gondoliers navigating the bridges and turns was one thing, but it does give you a whole new perspective to the city, and turned into a surprising highlight. The remainder of our afternoon was a mix of restful indulgence, more joyful wandering of endless alleyways, and admiring one of Italy's most renowned theatres and the city's most premier opera house. Not an opera fan myself, Maria Callas, whose career was launched here, was my only recognisable touchpoint, but even so, the building itself, originally built in 1792, is stunning to walk through, and the 45-minute tour is told well through its audio guide. As it turned out, today was also our best with food. For lunch, we love these small nibbles known as cicchetti. They're a popular menu choice all over Venice, providing a quick, varied, tasty snack, and can often be found just by searching the word on Google Maps. Fans of the channel will also know that we love a good coffee stop, and so I'd really recommend this garden cafe, especially when you're as lucky as we were with the weather. Finally, later that evening, my favourite meal in Venice was at this really friendly restaurant, where we enjoyed every single course. A smoked goose breast and tuna tartare for starter, a lovely pizza and seafood spaghetti for main, and a shared dessert, all going down like a treat. And so, looking ahead to our final day tomorrow, for the first time we'd be leaving its 2 main islands behind and heading northwards to check out its most popular day trip. Maybe to your surprise, Venice actually spreads over 400 kilometers of lagoon and across more than 120 different islands. And so far on this trip, we had visited 2, so we thought the least we could do was see 4. And that's why we booked this day trip to Murano, famous for its world-renowned glassmaking, and Burano, known for its lace skills and brightly coloured homes. As soon as we reached Murano, it already felt like a different vibe. Even though it still is one of the more popular islands to visit, the feel was much slower, and our brief time wandering its streets was a welcome change of pace. But the highlight here was definitely watching the glass being manipulated into shape as part of our tour. This skill has been widespread all over Venice for more than 1,000 years, but in 1291, due to the large number of furnace fires, the Doge decided that all glassmaking should be moved away to Murano Island, where I guess they'd be more understanding when they likely burnt down each other. There is, of course, a connected shop inside, which you can't film, but for expectations, it's best enjoyed more as an art gallery, with beautifully impossible glass sculptures and less of a marketplace for your potential tableware, though there is still some of that too. About 25 minutes further north by boat, Burano Island was yet another key change, and surprisingly became one of our high points for this whole holiday. We loved it here with its gorgeous main street, peppered with shops, cafes and restaurants. Outside of its main thoroughfare though, the islets here are largely residential. Home to almost 3,000 people, all the different shaded buildings you're seeing is said to have started right here, with its history as a fishing village. The story goes that with the island often covered in a thick morning fog, the different colours would help its fishermen signify whose home was whose. At least that's what Leonardo said to the Maroon House lady after getting in bed with Burgundy. Although no one can be certain, it is believed that Burano's reputation as a master of lace also came from this same era, with locals gaining relevant experience by repairing their own fishing nets. But it was at the end of the 16th century when Morosina Morosini, the wife of the Doge, stationed 130 lace makers on the island, and to this day its expertise continues. With items here made entirely by hand, and often taking months to do so, it is unfortunately somewhat of a dying art, but added yet another colour to our time in Burano. As mentioned, our next Venice follow-up video will cover more practical tips on what we would have done different for this trip in hindsight, more on using public transport and getting from the airport, which are the best and worst times to visit the city, costs, alternative hotel suggestions, and more, so I'll link that video here once it's ready. Please leave a like, let me know any thoughts or questions you may have, subscribe for more travel inspiration, and as ever, thank you for continuing to watch Suitcase Monkey.